Welcome back to The Explainer. Okay, get ready, because today we are diving into an absolutely incredible intellectual crossover. We're building a massive bridge between a 19th century German philosopher, the guy famous for his super dense, rigorous logic, and a 13th century Persian mystic who is literally world-renowned for his flowing, ecstatic poetry. I mean, it sounds like the ultimate mismatch, right? But, as you're going to see, the parallels here are just absolutely stunning.
Now, what's really interesting about this is the massive, and I mean massive, fascinating gap we're trying to bridge today. On one side, we've got Georg Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel. He's this towering figure of German absolute rationalism, right? A guy who literally built these immense, encyclopedic philosophical systems. And then, on the other side, we have Jalal-ud-Din Muhammad Rumi, the iconic mystic of Persia. His tool of choice, not some dry philosophical essay, but passionate, rhythmic, flowing poetry. We're talking two totally, wildly different cultures, completely different time periods, and completely different methods. Yet somehow, they were both asking the exact same fundamental questions about the fabric of reality.
So, to make sense of this dialogue, here's our beautifully structured roadmap for today. We'll start with German reason and Islamic mysticism, then look at their deep ties in unity and evolution, before moving into their partial agreements on history and consciousness. After that, we hit their fundamental conflicts over state and logic, and finally wrap up with union with truth, reason, or love. We are going on a journey across a full spectrum of agreement, taking us right from their mind-blowing similarities all the way down to their fundamental clashes.
Okay, let's dive right into this first section, German reason and Islamic mysticism, and set the stage for how these two giant minds approach the very fabric of reality.
Moving into Section 2, Deep Ties, Unity and Evolution. And honestly, it is delightfully surprising how much they totally agree on the biggest questions of existence. It's like they're intellectual twins.
Let's look at the core concept of Wahdat al-Wujud, or the unity of being. So, Rumi believes that the only true independent reality is God, and that the material world, with all its multiplicity and chaos, is really just a reflection. It's like a mirror where the divine watches itself. And wow, this maps so perfectly onto Hegel's absolute idealism. Hegel argues that the universe is just the manifestation of what he calls spirit, and that the whole duality between our minds and the objects we're looking at, that's just an illusion caused by an immature consciousness. For both of these amazing thinkers, absolutely everything ultimately traces back to one single unified reality.
And that actually flows perfectly right into our next shared concept, which is Aufheben, or sublation. Now, this is literally the core engine of Hegel's entire philosophy. It's this idea that contradictions clash, but they don't just destroy each other. Instead, they resolve, they evolve into a higher, more evolved level of truth. And this completely harmonizes with Rumi's belief that the universe is built on tazad, or contradiction. Rumi was constantly writing about the dialectic of night and day, joy and sorrow, good and evil. For Rumi, pain and suffering aren't just random bad luck, they're necessary forces, kind of like the struggles in our own lives, that actually push us toward a higher spiritual synthesis and peace.
This shared belief in dynamic progress leads us to this incredibly awe-inspiring evolutionary path. Both of these thinkers see existence as this upward climb. Rumi famously wrote this beautiful poem about dying as a mineral to become a plant, then dying as a plant to become an animal, moving all the way up through a human, and eventually reaching the angelic realm to completely annihilate into the divine. And guess what? Hegel's evolving spirit mirrors this exactly. The Hegelian spirit starts out as totally unconscious nature, evolves into conscious life, and then climbs through human history until it achieves absolute self-awareness. It is literally the exact same ladder, just painted with totally different cultural colors. So cool, right?
All right, let's transition to Section 3, Partial Agreements, History and Consciousness. This is where we hit the friction phase, where they share the same ultimate goals, but start choosing completely different vehicles to get there.
When we look at their views on teleology, which is really just a fancy philosophical word for purpose or direction, we see a major split. Both of them firmly believe history has a grand purpose. It's definitely not random. But their end goals? Completely divergent. Hegel believes the ultimate goal of human history is to build the perfect, rational, earthly, free state. But for Rumi, the goal of history is totally cosmic. It's Liqa Allah, the cosmic meeting with God. Plus, Hegel thinks history is driven by the cunning of reason, which subtly uses human passions to build institutions. Rumi replaces all of that with divine will and the passionate destiny of the soul, just trying to return to its source.
And this difference is visually stunning when we look at how they view human relationships.
Hegel gives us his famous master-slave dialectic.
This is a strictly horizontal relationship. It's all about two humans fighting to recognize each other's equal rights and social standing on Earth. Rumi, however, gives us the pira murid, the relationship between master and disciple. And this is entirely vertical. It's not about fighting for earthly social rights at all. It's about the disciple willingly surrendering their ego to the divine in order to achieve true spiritual identity. So you have horizontal social rights versus vertical spiritual surrender.
Despite that big difference, both actually agree there's an ultimate finish line. For Hegel, it's absolute knowledge. For Rumi, it's fana, or annihilation. Think of it like a single drop of water finally joining a vast, endless ocean. In both of these concepts, the gap between the observer and the observed just completely vanishes. The I disappears into the whole. It's this beautiful shared peak in their philosophies. But as you might have guessed from what we just talked about, the tools they use to actually reach that ocean are about to split them apart completely.
Let's move to section 4 and see how this builds into fundamental conflicts, state, and logic. This is the absolute opposition phase, where their worldviews fundamentally clash and things get pretty spicy.
Okay, so here we have a stark, completely irreconcilable contrast regarding the concept of the state. Hegel practically worshipped the modern state. He introduced the idea of Sittlichkeit, or ethical life, and literally called the state God walking on earth. For him, true freedom is only found by obeying state laws and participating in civic institutions. Well, Rumi violently rejects this. For the mystic, earthly states, politics, and social contracts, they're hijabs, veils that block the actual truth. The Hegelian state isn't freedom for Rumi. It's a suffocating cage that the bird of the soul must desperately try to escape.
And that brings us to this wonderfully sassy quote from Rumi. "The legs of the logicians are made of wood." I absolutely love that. Rumi is completely rejecting Hegel's obsession with rigid, logical, encyclopedic systems. Hegel bragged about his logical deductions. He really believed truth only existed within a strict system. But Rumi argues there's no way you can trap the living, breathing ocean of truth inside a rigid logical jug. He completely tosses out formal logic in favor of intuition, paradox, and the flowing mystical unveiling of the heart.
Which brings us to our final section, union with truth, reason, or love. Let's bring it all together for the grand finale explainer on how we reach the highest truth.
So, the crucial point is really about their ultimate philosophical takeaways. Hegel is the ultimate philosopher of self-founding reason. He wants to justify God and reality through logic, historical progress, and human institutions. He actively seeks reconciliation with the world by knowing it completely through reason. Rumi, on the flip side, is the mystic of annihilating love. He believes reason is great, but it can only take you to the doorstep of the divine. To actually enter, you have to ride the horse of love. Rumi seeks liberation from the world by annihilating the self entirely into its creator.
Which leaves us with this deeply provocative and beautiful question for you to ponder long after this explainer ends. When you look at your own intellectual and spiritual journey to understand the ultimate truth of existence, do you choose the path of reason or the path of love? Thank you so much for exploring these two monumental minds with us today. Keep questioning, keep exploring, and we'll see you in the next one.